Hey everyone, welcome back to The Tent, your place for politics, policy, and progress. I'm Daniella Gibbs-Leger.
And I'm Colin Seeberger, fresh back from norovirus.
Woo!
Yeah, it was real fun.
Sorry.
Thank you. In better news, though, Daniella, The Bachelor returned this week.
I know. I'm like halfway through the episode, so no spoilers, please.
Okay.
But thus far, I am enjoying it.
We liked the llama. We did not like the llama.
I thought the llama... Actually, I like the llama. And maybe it's because I read a lot of llama,
Yeah.
llama, whatever it's called. Yeah, that. So it was clever. It was different. It was weird. And I like that the llama was a little bit stubborn. So
Me too.
Yes.
Well, we look forward and very much welcome a distraction these days. But in the meantime, I heard you had a good interview this week with our Cap Action colleague, Joe Radosevich.
That's right. He's our vice president of campaigns and outreach here at Cap Action. And we talked about the real harms the new administration's actions to date have had, how MAGA is failing to deliver on its promises to the American people, and the steps that lawmakers can take to fight back against Trump's dangerous agenda.
All super timely topics.
Yes.
For sure. But first, we have to get to some news.
We do, Colin, because in his second week in office, yes, just the second, Trump is continuing to ramp up his extreme actions that are out of step with what the American people want. On Monday night, he issued an order that would have frozen all federal loans, grants, and other forms of monetary government assistance. Seems bad.
Quite.
Now, who knows where we'll be at by the time this comes out, because they keep flip-flopping and confusing even themselves about the status of this freeze. But as of this recording, here's where we're at. The administration claimed they only meant to pause assistance for programs that conflict with Trump's priorities. But by Tuesday morning, their announcement had already caused mass confusion, headed towards real disruptions to government services. For example, all 50 states reported that they were frozen out of Medicaid, the health insurance program for low-income Americans in this country. And several states reported shutdowns in their reimbursement systems for Head Start, which provides child care services to low-income families. So let's think about that. People who run daycares couldn't pay their bills. That's very unacceptable.
Not good.
And, not only is this a gross abuse of power straight out of the Project 2025 playbook, it's nakedly illegal, which is why a judge partially halted the freeze. Now, thankfully, in the face of public outcry, the administration rescinded the order in shame.
Oh, we love to see it.
We do. But make no mistake, this freeze is just the beginning of Trump's plan to steal from taxpayers, to shut down much of the government. His administration is already responsible for causing direct harm to millions of everyday Americans, and millions more stand to be impacted, especially if the Senate confirms Russ Vought to lead the Office of Management and Budget.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely good to see that the public really responded in this moment of, frankly, a real test of our constitutional system of checks and balances, right? They were like, we're not standing for this. You're not a king, Trump, right? And so, while it didn't work this time around, we know that Republicans on Capitol Hill are actively looking to gut many of these same programs, right? Frankly, we saw a memo from folks on Capitol Hill last week laying out the trillions and trillions of dollars, over $5.5 trillion of cuts to many of these same programs, including Medicaid, in order to pay for their big tax giveaway to, billionaires who don't need it, right? And so really, this is also just like kind of further underscoring that they're willing to steal from the middle class, from people who actually need help, in order to be able to give more and more to those at the very top. Thankfully, again, like you said, this order didn't go into effect, but if it did, the damage would be stark. We would see a shutdown of disaster relief funding for federally funded infrastructure projects. Healthcare, food and water inspections would be taken offline. We'd also see money cut from 2 in 3 schools in this country, public schools, that is. We'd see childcare centers and Head Start programs be taken offline, which means not just do families, not have access to childcare, but they may not even be able to go to work,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. It would have impacted community church outreach programs, as well as, the grants that ensure safe drinking water, life-saving medical research, and so much more. The law and the courts have repeatedly said, as you were mentioning earlier, that this kind of blanket freeze, right, is illegal, and yet MAGA Republicans still tried to charge forward. That's why we need to see some real accountability from the administration. They need to make clear that they understand the pain that they inflicted on people, right?
Hmm.
Which is why the president needs to fire his top policy aide, Stephen Miller, who has repeatedly shown a propensity to flout the Constitution, bungle policy rollouts. You may remember, it was Muslim ban 1.0
Hmm.
or family separation in the first administration. Well, you know what? That guy who saw numerous of his policy rollouts end up actually having to get walked back. Well, guess what? He's right back doing it again. And this time it's harming even more and more Americans. I doubt, again, that this is the last time that we're going to see a proposal like this
Hmm.
because they've been chopping at the bit, to gut these programs for so long. But we shouldn't give, Stephen Miller the keys to the car and say, feel free to go for a joyride.
No, we should not. And given how vain Trump is, you would think that he wouldn't want to be surrounded by somebody who embarrasses him because let's be honest, this is embarrassing.
Yes.
They did this whole fanfare and hooting and hollering and now they had to walk it back.
Yeah, it's a bureaucratic, farce, it feels
Yes,
like.
it's very embarrassing.
Yeah.
And listen, the sleeping freeze that he tried to implement isn't a new concept. It was laid out in none other than Project 2025, the radical MAGA playbook for the second Trump term that we've all been talking about for several months.
Hmm.
And look, an alarming number of Project 2025 proposals have already made their way into Trump's early agenda. In fact, the overwhelming share of his actions from the past week have been practically copy pasted from the playbook. We are watching Project 2025 come to life in real time.
If only somebody had ever warned of
If
this.
only someone had spoken out about this.
Yeah,
I know.
Oh.
2/3 of Trump's week one executive actions were either identical or almost identical to proposals in Project 2025, including things like withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, banning transgender Americans from military service, dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within the federal government, and diverting vital military and National Guard resources towards immigration raids. And it's no surprise, pretty much as soon as he won the election, Trump dropped the pretense that he was unaffiliated with Project 2025. His allies have reiterated in public interviews that Project 2025 was the agenda all along.
Yep.
And surprise, surprise, some of its architects have been selected by Trump to lead key agencies like the aforementioned Russ Vought at OMB.
Daniela, talking about this, week one Project 2025 agenda, going into action, it really stands out to me that the things that Donald Trump was talking about on the campaign trail when he was, disclaiming any association with Project 2025. I'm talking about things like, helping Americans get by, making the cost of living more affordable,
Yeah.
right? None of that is part of this agenda.
Nope, nowhere to be found, Colin.
No.
Nowhere.
It's infuriating, right? I mean, I also infuriating. We have to talk about there are other elements of Project 2025 that Trump has already been moving forward on. For example, a major part of Project 2025 really focuses on giving the president even more power over what have been longstanding independent agencies in the federal government that are intended to put the best interest of workers, consumers, folks who are nonprofits, things like that, right? Put those first, right? Because they're intended to serve the public, the public good. And Trump has already set out to fire commissioners at many of these independent agencies. I'm talking, of course, about places like the National Labor Relations Board, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, right, that are supposed to be there to protect workers and make sure that when they try to, organize and vote to unionize, that they can have those unions recognized or, stop workers from being discriminated against by employers who, are willing to violate the law so that they can make more money, right? And that's exactly what Trump is trying to stop and really implement this radical partisan ideology first and foremost. We also, though, need to talk about other personnel issues that we've seen over the course of the last week. Project 2025's, plan to basically mass reclassify civil servants, nonpartisan civil servants that serve the public interest as political appointees, making them eligible to be fired. Trump hit the ground running on that on day one. It's called Schedule F. We also saw metadata pulled from the original PDFs of these memos on some of these kind of civil service changes. Those memos were revealed that they were actually written by men with ties to the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025.
Look at that.
Yeah, I know. Whoever could have seen this coming, including one who hasn't even been officially given a position in the administration, yet he's out authoring OPM memos?
It's wild. How is that legal?
It's bananas. The Project 2025 agenda remains profoundly unpopular with most Americans, and for good reason. It would raise taxes on the typical family of four by about $3,000 a year. It seeks to ban abortion nationwide and eliminate the Department of Education altogether, among countless other really damaging, bad things.
Right.
So Trump won in part by distancing himself from this unpopular agenda. But Project 2025 was, and seems to be the MAGA agenda for a second Trump term. And, we need to see Republicans, we're about to see them push even more of these policies in the months ahead, and we got to hold them accountable for it.
Exactly. It's really terrifying to think about. But if we notice and acknowledge the links between what Trump is doing, his agenda, and Project 2025, we can at least be ready for the outlandishly harmful policies that they're going to try and pass.
Yeah. The first step to solving a problem is admitting you have one, right?
Exactly.
Very true, Daniela. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If there's anything you'd like us to cover on the pod, hit us up on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at The 10 Pod.
And stick around for my interview with Joe Radosevich in just a beat. Joe Radosevich is the Vice President for Campaigns and Outreach at the Center for American Progress Action Fund. He previously served in a variety of senior roles for Senator Amy Klobuchar and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. In 2016 and 2018, he managed back-to-back winning statewide campaigns for Shapiro and Klobuchar, respectively. Joe, thank you so much for joining us on The Tent.
Thank you for having me here.
What a pedigree. All right.
Doesn't measure up to yours.
Well, let's jump right in because there's a lot to cover.
Yes.
So despite pledging on the campaign trail to make it easier for everyday Americans to get by, MAGA Republicans only seem focused on delivering for their wealthy donors.
Mm-hmm.
In Trump's first few days in office, he ended the plan to drop the cost of generic drugs to $2 for seniors on Medicare, to the delight of Big Pharma, and gutted two of our fastest growing industries, wind energy and electric vehicles, to the benefit of his big oil donors. Earlier this week, he tried to ram through a blatantly illegal federal funding freeze that saw all 50 states frozen out of their Medicaid programs, and several shut out of their reimbursement systems for Head Start.
Yeah.
And as if that wasn't enough, Trump next plans to gut many programs Americans rely on and ram through tax cuts for the wealthy and the largest corporations. So, is this what the American people want? How does it diverge from the priorities they expressed during the election, even among Trump supporters?
Yeah, especially among Trump supporters. I mean, I think that, of course, this isn't what the American people want. And I think that we need to, parse out a little bit the story that people are hearing from Trump and the Trump administration and the actions that they're taking. So you were highlighting some of these actions that we need to put a spotlight on and make sure that people know and understand. But at the same time, appreciate that the big headline he's getting through is shaking things up, right? And that is something that a lot of people want, including, frankly, a lot of progressives, right? We're not satisfied with how things are. We have a lot of ideas about how to improve people's lives. So I think the challenge is, though these actions totally diverge from what he's been promising and saying, it isn't always going to be cutting through to people. And so what are we thinking about in terms of our focus and in terms of how we approach the problem and frankly, theatrics and hype to make sure that big headline isn't, oh, Trump's shaking things up. He's doing all this crazy stuff, and is instead, oh, this is the oldest story in the book. He's letting these insiders, he's letting the people funding his race, he's letting the people who have access get what they want, and we're going to pay for it.
Right. So this news cycle has been
Yeah.
very crowded this week/year because it has felt like a year, and with so much barreling at us. So how should progressives identify the most harmful policies and stay focused? Like, to your point, how can we avoid being baited into conversations that aren't productive?
Right. I think there are two, key tests before we engage or jump in on something, because there's going to be so much coming at us. And the first one is, are people harmed right now? There is going to be so many things to talk about that when we're thinking about, I think, prospective things, it's important at a place like CAP to know, how is this policy going to impact people? We'll have the facts. We'll be ready to go when they do something terrible. And I think we saw that yesterday when, folks at daycare facilities, Head Start facilities were frozen out of funds. We knew how many people were impacted,
Right.
In Pennsylvania or in Wisconsin. The test, though, is, were people harmed by this? And that's the first one that we have to get to, because otherwise we're going to lose folks. It's not connected to their lives. And I think the second test is we get one story to tell. And it might be a little too early to know exactly what that story is against this administration. Right? We're day 8 or something. I don't know when this is going out. But the corruption that they are planning to unleash, that really has been the reason that Americans have lost their sort of grip on the American dream over the last, few generations. That is the big story. And it's not just about Trump.
Right.
It's much bigger than him. And so I guess that would be the other piece of your question is about, okay, what do we focus on the stuff he's doing? Did it harm people? Does it show the insiders who are in charge the corruption that they have unleashed on us? But then pulling back, because we're not always want to react to him, what's going on in people's lives? What about housing, right? It's ridiculous. The cost of housing for a new family, that's something that we should be talking about that might not be in the headlines about Donald Trump, but it's still about this power of the amount of money that a certain group of people have had to lock people out of homes, to buy up homes, to use algorithms to jack up rents illegally. That's a bigger story that, frankly, more Americans are interested in than what did Trump do yesterday.
100% right. So also this week, the Senate will hold confirmation hearings for a number of Trump's most dangerous personnel picks, including RFK Jr., Trump's pick to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. We also have Kash Patel, his pick to lead the FBI, and Tulsi Gabbard, his pick to lead our national intelligence strategy. It's not funny, but I can't believe it. So all of these people pose grave threats to Americans' health and security. So how do you think Democrats should be approaching these confirmation hearings, and what should they be asking in order to make those threats clear to people?
Yeah. Well, I think all of the people you named here, and I would throw my personal favorite of Russ Vought as someone who's incredibly dangerous, is these three folks are not qualified for their jobs. That should be damaging. That should mean that they aren't going to get in. But that probably won't be the case. But it is still important, even though qualifications on sort of face value right now may not be the thing that people are most convinced by, right? There is a desire to shake things up. We still need to make those lack of qualifications clear, because they're going to mess something up and people are going to get harmed. And so it is important to lay out for future accountability that these are clearly not people who can be in these jobs. And Democrats need to draw a line on, there might be some people we disagree with but are qualified. I am totally fine, frankly, with Democrats supporting some of those nominees. For the people who are not qualified, or for the people who have a financial stake in a lawsuit against vaccines,
For example.
or who have been palling around with our adversaries, we do need to make that clear and oppose them in as united a fashion as we can, so that when they mess up, we can point back to this and we can have a plank of accountability of this is what happens when you allow someone like an RFK to be in charge of a children's vaccine program that has been very effective, right? That was started in the 90s. um, and so that it sets up our ability to hold them accountable. In private, Democratic senators need to have one-on-one conversations with a few Republicans to see what would be possible, to see who can be stopped.
Yeah.
But this administration is going to move on from that real quick, and that's a private game. So qualifications are really important in these hearings for us to be able to call back to it. And then the second piece is we get one story. So these hearings have to be part of that story, and opportunities to point out where they have conflicts, where they are benefiting insiders instead of the American people. And frankly, I think some provocative questions. Like I would ask Russ Vought how much money you would have to pay him to change his position on something. And just see what they have to say. Because the only thing that's not for sale in this current Republican Party is that everything is for sale. The only core belief is that, with enough access, with enough money, I'll change my position on TikTok. I'll change my position on Bitcoin. I'll change my position on anything.
Yeah, everything has a price with this administration. Speaking of accountability and lack thereof, the first week of this administration looked more like an Elon Musk administration, with the world's richest man and his loyalists dominating key offices and already swaying really important decisions. So what opportunities there do you see for progressives to call out the dangers of this billionaire cabinet designed to do the bidding of insiders, like you say, like Musk? Like, does the American public approve of billionaire donors lining their pockets while making the middle class pay?
Of course not.
I would hope not.
But, again, on the political reality of this, there's a lot of cynics, and cynicism is something that we have to fight as progressives every day. And a lot of people think, fair or not, that, a billionaire, they're going to have access. They're always going to be able to pick up the phone and call someone in the administration. They're always going to be able to, figure out some way to benefit themselves. And our charge is to go one step beyond that and show how people are being hurt. Just pointing out, all these billionaires are, get meetings that they want in Washington. I mean, yeah,
It happens.
Yep, it's sort of like that's life, to a lot of people. And so we can't stop there. And I think sometimes on the left, we stop too early in that story. We just point at the corruption and hope that people can fill out the rest of the sentence and kind of understand the impacts. And we really can't do that. The good news is they know it's true, right? Like when we can tell that full story, most Americans don't say like, oh, those guys don't want to do that. They're okay with lower price generic drugs. They're not really just out for money. That's not the case. They get it, but we do need to draw the connection in terms of how people are harmed because. I'd say backing up, and I was at in an attorney general's office for a number of years, and people expect companies to make money.
Right.
They
that
think
is what they do.
they are there for their shareholders, and they're supposed to make money and make profit, and kind of almost do whatever they can to do that within the bounds of the law. And our job in government is to hold them accountable when they don't do that. And so when something like this is going on, some of this type of corruption, the responsibility falls on the people in government, not really these companies. I mean, we should call them out for their bad behavior. But at the end of the day, the American people that we're really trying to reach, they think, yeah, of course these guys are trying to do that. What are you doing? How are you stopping them?
So let's talk about that accountability. As you mentioned, you served as chief of staff for Governor Shapiro when he was attorney general. Including the first 2 years of the Trump administration. So, given your experience, what should state attorneys general and other state and local officials, like governors and mayors, be doing to effectively hold this administration accountable for bad federal and legal policy? And, what role do you think they'll be playing in the next couple of years?
Yeah. Certainly the last week has felt like a lot of deja vu, not in a great way. I do think that actually as a movement, we are smarter right now, and we are being a bit more strategic. I think that some of the obituaries about the Democratic Party are a bit premature. But I think those lessons from 2017, okay, something really important. We need to show some wins. I mean, a big part, I think, of the initial response to Trump that was effective was showing people that, a lot of Americans disagree with this. And having some backbone is really important. It's not necessarily always going to be a big political victory, but just, having some moral clarity and having a voice that shows there are a lot of people who disagree with this and we have power is important. And governors and mayors are going to be the key way to do that, full stop.
Yep.
The challenge is going to be, okay, we're going to use the courts to stop some of this bad stuff, but a lot of people don't trust the courts. A lot of people don't like the system. A lot of people don't, they have plenty of examples of things that seem common sense that maybe have been stopped. And so we're going to rely on that tool, but that can't be our message. Like, it can't be that, they're doing this because they didn't comply with the Administrative Procedures Act, which is really how a lot of stuff was stopped in 17 and 18, especially. That ain't enough.
No.
We got to focus on how people are harmed very quickly in that story. And that will be a challenge because the venue of how we're going to do this stuff will be the courts sometimes.
So it sounds like we have a tricky couple of years ahead of us. Joe, I want to thank you for all the work that you do here at Cap Action, and thank you for joining us on the 10th.
The whole team here, yes, thank you.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for us today. As always, please go back and check out previous episodes. Before we go, football.
We are
We're here.
Finally,
We're at the end.
The football season that I want to just Control-Alt-Delete from history is finally coming to a conclusion. We do have our 2 Super Bowl teams.
Yes.
You may have heard of them, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Perhaps you've heard of them.
Yeah, once or twice. And the Philadelphia Eagles.
What? It is a rematch of their Super Bowl 3 years ago?
3, right?
Okay.
No.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
And that one saw the Kansas City Chiefs win, so it'll be very interesting to see if Jason Kelce, formerly of Philadelphia Eagles, gets his revenge on his brother Travis Kelce, even though he's not playing anymore. Jason, that is. I'm excited. I'm just happy the Commanders didn't make it because I'm a hater, full stop. I am. When it comes to football, I show no mercy. You should know that about me by now. But also, here, my dear sweet Commanders fans, in the first year of new ownership, new coach, a rookie quarterback, you made it to the division finals. That's amazing. And you should sit with that, and you should feel proud and happy. Now, I know my tone may sound condescending, but I don't mean it that way. I'm really serious. Like, be freaking happy, okay? You had
they made the conference final.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You made a conference final. Like, okay, get over it. You lost to the Eagles, but like your future is so bright. Like, I don't want to hear it. So that's my thought, and my I just want to share that with all the Commanders fans. Kelly, hi. Anyway, who do we want to win this game, Colin?
Well, I do not share your enthusiasm for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you know,
I don't like them.
Any Dallas Cowboys fan, they are at the very top of the can do no good list.
Fair enough.
So I will be rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think it would be cool to watch them be the first team to win 3 Super Bowls in a row, especially if it means defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. That would be great. But I totally agree that, like, the Commanders, Jaden Daniels is 24. Like, he's got such a bright future ahead of him and seems to have a good head on his shoulders, calm, cool, collected. Totally stoked to see, and when I say stoked, I mean totally dreading to see how he and his team stack up against the Cowboys next year, who the Cowboys got a new head coach over the weekend.
You sure did. How do you feel about that choice?
I am not inspired.
That is the prevailing answer.
Yes, there is a reason why Schottenheimer. Yeah. How to actually say it, but has been an assistant coach everywhere he's been.
Yeah,
because it's not cut out for the head coach job.
It was a perplexing decision. Is the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I wish you good luck on that. I need to clarify. I don't love the Eagles. Okay, like.
Thanks for making it.
I mean, I'm just saying. I hate the Commanders more, so it's important for them to not make it to Super Bowl. I do like some Eagles players. They are great on social media. Some of them are very like
They're fun.
pleasing to look at. I mean, I'm just saying I do like some of the players, but like I'm not an Eagles fan. I want the Kansas City Chiefs to win because I want Taylor Swift to be happy, but also because I want Tom Brady to like call that game knowing
Please.
that Patrick Mahomes
Please.
did something that he couldn't do.
That would be amazing.
Like a balm to my soul in these turbulent times, Colin.
Yes, you and every New York Giants fan.
Yes. Speaking of turbulent times, I've been turning to TV a lot to get me through.
We all.
Yes. So we talked about The Bachelor
That's a
earlier.
healthy escape, Daniela.
It is a healthy escape,
Relatively.
I suppose. So I thought our listeners might like to know what things we have been watching. So I just finished watching Alex Cross. And it was terrifying, like spooky. Like I should know this about all the Alex Cross like movies. Like they're like, it's horror, crime, whatever, but so good. I highly recommend it.
I will need to catch that. I have been watching a few different things. Like I said, I was sick end of last week, so like, and I was stuck at home. I was solo parenting and everything. So it was like my child was latched to me, or she was in bed, and I was just watching TV. And so I watched some episodes of Hacks.
Okay.
Which was very good. I hate that I was so delayed in actually catching up on it. And then I've been watching a lot of true crime, which is not usually my vibe, but I was like taking myself back to being like a young kid at the grocery store, seeing John Benet Ramsey's face plastered all over National Enquirer, and this, that, the next. There's some new true crime series on Netflix covering that case, and then another one on Lacey Peterson's murder, and it was the rabbit hole that I needed to escape into.
Whatever it takes. That's not personally my jam. I want to escape from the true life that I'm currently living sometimes. So I prefer to go dive into reality. I may be the only person in this recording studio who watches The Challenge on MTV.
You are, but
Okay.
I watched The Traitors, who feature some people from
Exactly.
The Challenge.
Exactly. I feel like I need to start watching Traitors. But for those,
Oh my God, it's so good.
for those people who do watch The Challenge All-Stars are coming to MTV, so you don't have to like watch it on Paramount Plus.
Oh.
So yes, I'm very excited about that because like I'm not getting another subscription.
No,
So
over
yes.
my dead body.
Exactly. Over my poor wallet.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about that. So yes, we've got a couple things to keep us occupied. So this is good.
Keep it coming.
Exactly.
Content producers, give us what the people need. Okay?
Please do. I need another cutesy demure thing that I
Yes.
can like go down a rabbit hole on TikTok while we still have it. So please come through,
Please.
internets. Well, until that happens, you all take care of yourselves, and we will talk to you next week. The Tent is a podcast from the Center for American Progress Action Fund. It's hosted by me, Daniella Gibbs-Leger, and co-hosted by Colin Sieberger. Aaron Phillips is our lead producer. Kelly McCoy is our supervising producer. Mishka Espy is our booking producer. Muggs Leone is our digital producer. Hi Fan, Matthew Gossage, Olivia Mowry, and Tony Pandolfo are our video team. Views expressed by guests of The Tent are their own, and interviews are not endorsements of a guest's perspectives. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.